So CTAS 1 is a cardiac arrest or somebody that's in like a severe trauma or in a seizure. CTAS 2 is somebody with a head injury, potentially chest pain or a stroke. CTAS 3 would be somebody that has some mild breathing problems, could be some like a moderate to severe anxiety. CTAS 4, stitches, could be a sprain, stuff like that. And then CTAS 5 is the least minor. It could be a sore throat, dressing changes and stuff like that, so really minor calls. So back to the percentile response time, it really does give a true reflection of a 9 times out of 10 how well you're doing. It's not an average. It's not all the calls wrapped up and then divided. It's really, we said where we developed them a 9 times out of 10 criteria. So for us, if we had 1,000 calls for simple math, 900 of those calls would have to be in the response time target for us to meet. So these are our results for 2019. For sudden cardiac arrest, our target is 40%, and our performance is 57.8. I believe that's about the highest it's ever been, so that's a very positive number for us. But again, this is a low number of calls, and a few calls could make a difference here. It moves quite quickly. CTAS 1, it is a low number of calls again. It's 1 to 2% of our call volume. But again, this is a strong number for us, is 72.6% of the time that we're getting there within 8 minutes. CTAS 2, we're slightly under our target is 90, and we're 88.71. We're close, but we're not quite there. We have been below that for a while, but back in 2014, 15, our best times were just under 15 minutes. So it is a pretty aggressive target for us to be there. This is our most common emergency call where on a code 4 where we return with somebody that's severe. Our CTAS 3, our target is 90%, and we're at 97. And CTAS 4, our target is 90, it's 97.3. And CTAS 5, our target's 90, and we're 96.34. And you can see from what I did is I had the 4-year averages there that when you kind of break them down of where we're looking at. We did have 5-year averages, but if you wonder why I picked 4, I had to kind of build in where we did the changes, where we used to have 30 minutes for CTAS 3, 4, and 5, but this is the 4th year now that we've had that, so I didn't really want to have 4 years plus 1, so it's really, next year we'll be back to the 5-year average, to give you an idea. But you can see that we're well within our targets and we're above our averages in some areas. So for the 2019 calendar year, so our CTAS 2 is a bit below, and it has been for 4 years now, and we continue to work to try to improve that. These are good numbers though, like if you look at our 90th, well they all are, but if you look at the 90th percentile, it's 1451, and it hasn't been that way since 2015, so we're actually under the 15-minute mark for this year. And we're just hovering a bit over that and a bit under it, so it's very positive. And our average, you can see here, when you average out all the calls, it's 743. So just a bit about challenging of the targets in rural Ontario. The CTAS 1s and 2s, they make up a small amount of our calls, roughly about 2%. And when we talk about target times for CTAS 1, it's 8 minutes, and a sudden cardiac arrest, it's 6 minutes. But we don't count the drive time. We count the drive time, but it's not just that. It's from the time the pager goes off. So you have a 1 to 2 minute shoot time for the paramedics get in the truck and find out where they're going, and then from there they drive to the place and then pick up the radio and radio that they've arrived at the scene. So roughly, when you're looking at that, there's a 1 to 2 minutes that take up that time. So when you look at those, we do have some difficulties outside in the rural areas meeting those targets, and that's why sometimes you see those percentiles lower. And this just gives you an idea. Joel was able to help us with the GIS from the GIS department. We're really happy for him. He always continually helps us with our data. You can see for sudden cardiac arrest, roughly about 32% is within that capture range of the 5 minutes. CTAS 1 is 43%, and then CTAS 2 about 73%, and then 3 to 5, almost 90% of the population is within that range. So that's kind of things we look at when we're determining this too. For the 2020 year, we're still looking at tweaking our deployment. There's some other things we can do is we're looking at, where most of our calls happen and aligning resources with them, looking at, different areas of the county to try to make those improvements better. We will be coming back in the summer again with a full analysis of all the lower tiers and recommendations, but that's kind of what we're looking at for this upcoming year. And for legislative requirements, this is under our legislative requirement under Regulation 257, Part 8, the response time performance standards. And as an upper tier municipality, we're responsible for patient care and transport, and responsible for supervision, staff, maintenance of vehicles, equipment, and the provision of quality assurance. Okay, that's quick.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions to be asked by Councillor Millen?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Kevin, these response times, are they for our vehicles only, or are they for all responses right across the county, including on the fringe areas where we may have cars come in from outside the county?
Kevin?
So the data does its best to bring some of those calls in, but what happens is we have to marry up patient care records with the ADRS data. So when I asked the InterDev that does our analytics for us, like some calls come in, some don't. There is a discrepancy in some of that, so it doesn't have all the calls in that, but it is the county as a whole.
Thank you.
Any other questions there? Councillor Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I have no questions on this report, but with your leave, Mr. Warden, I wonder if I might ask a question with respect to COVID and preparations for paramedics. Are we doing anything extra special, or are we doing any special preparation with respect to COVID-19?
I will allow that question because I was going to ask the same question. So, Kevin?
Well, it's an ever-evolving situation. Like every day we get more information. Just as I sat here, we had another release of updated screening, and Jason's actually putting that together right now to put out to staff. So that's the big part of it, is getting the information and getting accurate information out to staff. And we're doing screening, like our dispatch center screens and the paramedics are screening. As far as PPE, reviewing the, how to, as far as donning and doffing and PPE, make sure you're doing that appropriately. Supplies, that is a difficulty right now for us, is getting supplies across the province. It's been pretty locked up as far as getting PPE, so we're continually evaluating our supplies and ensuring that we have enough. But the ministry has assured us as we run low that they will be able to provide some of that out to us. So it's just the ongoing education and training and those type of things.
That's great. You're getting updates fairly current that way. Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Kevin, thanks for the report. Congratulations on exceeding your milestones. Just a question in regards to when the 911 caller phones down to London Dispatch, do you have any idea what the turnaround time in London is before your paramedics are paged out?
Kevin?
I could go on the ministry website, and everybody can, for the legislative response time standards. If you go into there, you can see every dispatch center across the province. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe theirs is less than 2 minutes, and I've tried the 80 or 90% of the time. But you can see their performance, and you can see what their percentages are. So that is available. I can forward that out to you if you want to see that. But I would say.
Sorry, Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Do you believe that the response times out of London are on par with the provincial average?
Kevin?
I would want to check just to be 100% sure, but I would think that they would be in the same range, but I couldn't say for sure. We are looking at new technology, and I've been saying this for 10 years, so I'm tired of actually saying it, but I really do feel that we're going to get it this year, for we have the real-time data and the dispatch. Like I would say that we will be hopefully one of the first ones that have this, and I feel that will actually take a lot of the work off of the dispatch center. So what will happen is they'll send that information out to us, and we'll get it live on our computer, all the call data. And where they're seeing this in Windsor and Niagara and Toronto, where they've trialed this, it's a significant improvement. And as far as dispatch's ability to timely dispatch calls, we could get to a potential that will be silent dispatch, that it'll be all data short of radio communications for safety. But that type of thing, so that really streamlines it. And if, back to the modernization report from a couple weeks ago, this is one of the improvements that they need to do to modernize and move forward, and it will really cut back our time. There's an option that I look forward to that they have in Niagara, that as soon as the phone rings and the person says that they need an ambulance, there's a decision made based upon the closest vehicle that notifies the crew there's a call coming in your area to get ready. And they haven't even paged yet, so your shoot time almost disappears. So that's the kind of stuff that with technology that we can take away that 1 to 2 minutes. So they're still on the phone and they know they need an ambulance. They may not know 100% where they are, but they know in the general location, they know that they need an ambulance, and the crew, they could, if they're driving there, and that's one of the things, sometimes they arrive before they even get paged, that they could be driving by. But that's what we want to do, is any type where we can use technology to reduce the amount of time to give out that call is good.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions then to Kevin? Seeing none, will you make sure you tell your staff the good job they're doing, and all in favor of that report? That's carried. Moving on our agenda now, on the right page. We did have a delegation at our last council with regards to the Children's Safety Village. There's a report here. Does somebody wish to move? Councillor Hutchinson, have a seconder? Councillor Mackey? So that's with regards to the request, and then there's a resolution there that everybody can see. I think it's pretty self-explanatory with regards to the information that's in our package. Is there any discussion on that? I know, Kevin, this was you brought that you're bringing this forward, but out of a one-time reserve. But are there any questions to that request and what we have here? Wow, you guys are ready to go for lunch. All right, seeing there's no questions, all in favor? That is carried. Okay. Other business. Is there any other business to today's council? I just want to say again that how it was a big turnout for the opening of Foodland in Markdale today. I apologize for not being here sooner. Thank you very much, Deputy Warden and Councillor Hicks, for taking over from the chairmanship here. Very well attended, especially on a day like today. Seeing there's no other business, then we'll move on. Is there any notice of motions to be presented? Councillor Desai.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I would like to present notice of motion and discuss debate at the next county council meeting with regards to the effects of Australia's World Trade Organization challenge against Canada's wine and cider industries. Australia has initiated a World Trade Organization challenge which targets Canada's wine, which currently is exempt from paying excise in Canada. And we do in Grey County have quite a few wineries and cideries, and the reason cideries are under fire as well right now is because cider is currently legislated under the Wine Act. As such, I think it's important, because we do have quite a few wineries and cideries in Grey County, and they are huge economic drivers, that we debate this item and we forward our thoughts to our MP and our MPP on this item. I will have a notice, a proper motion filled out and sent to the clerk in time for the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Desai. Are there any other notice of motions? Okay, seeing none, just before we do adjourn, I do want, just before I see you. I got half a minute. I do want to say that our delegation at the Ontario Good Roads Association just the other day to the Minister of Transportation, Carol Marini, went very well. There was quite a few around the table that attended. We're hoping that she'll be able to come up to our area for a couple meetings, and stay tuned on that. We'll certainly let you know on that development. I know Madam CAO, you're reaching out to the contact that we forwarded to you, and so we'll just there is a meeting on March 13th with regards to the Georgian Bay area meeting that's in Thornbury. With some hope that she may try to get to that meeting. And if that's the case, then we'll try to have a meeting here in the morning in Owen Sound that will include, like yourself, Mayor Boddy, and others around this area of Owen Sound. So, Councillor Robinson, and so we'll try to include everybody in if we're able to get that second meeting. So, stay tuned on that. Okay, so, Counselor Millen, you're moving to adjourn? Yes, sir, I am. Okay, do I have a seconder? Counselor Desai. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. You beat the lunchtime bell.
Lunch is here if they want to.